Hey everyone, welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. We're at episode 709. This is being recorded on the 1st of February, 2023. I'm Sebastian Peak.
Still Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm going to play Brett Van Schoenberg tonight.
Easy for you to say.
It's Brett Van Sporenberg tonight. And you can help support us in our quest to remember our own names at patreon.com/PCPer. Become a patron of the PCPer arts, like Adnan K.
Yes.
Asgard. Osgard. And then random letters typed into the keyboard. JD.
I think that's JD Kick.
C.
JD Kick.
Jid Kick. Exclamation mark. You could be like these people.
I sent Josh a question because one of the patrons, I believe it was Adnan. Yes, it was Adnan. Sent in a question to Josh. I just want to pull that up here real quick because it's a very interesting question and it's about food. Josh, he wants to know if you would consider a Middle Eastern infused burger, and he'd like you to see if you could possibly review like a lamb burger, and he's talking like real Middle Eastern, like Abu Dhabi, kind of thing.
That type of stuff. The
UAE.
closest I've had is it was a Euro burger, and it was half lamb, half beef, and it had tzatziki sauce and all the vegetables and all that, and it was fantastic. It was super tasty, and so I'd more than willing to be, exploratory with Middle Eastern food, and especially lamb and beef from that area with the seasonings and the spices and the toppings. I think that would be a pretty interesting and tasty burger. Maybe I'll talk to my guy and see if we can get going. Check back with me in a couple of weeks.
Are lamb burgers really that rare down there?
Yeah, we're kind of big beef in Wyoming.
Weird. Wow,
Yeah,
lamb
who would
burgers
have thought?
big here.
All right.
Tasty too.
Speaking of burgers. Josh.
Burgers. So anyway, today was a new one that I've never had before. It's the unintended consequences. Get it? Unintended consequences. Anyway, double patty topped with fried onions, Swiss cheese, mushrooms, and A1 sauce. I'll tell you, Swiss cheese, it is very distinct in how it melts and it gets stringy. It's like mozzarella in ways, with that kind of string when it's been melted. But this is a very tasty burger. You could really taste the onions, the Swiss, the mushrooms. I mean, and they didn't overdo it with A1 sauce. So, it was a very light coating of A1 sauce. And so you got all of the flavors and not just here's something with a lot of A1 sauce on it, because A1 is a pretty powerful sauce when you put it on steaks or any kind of meat. But this was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't the best, but it was still very good. And the tots were really on point. I mean, yeah, it got a little steamy in there. There's some condensation, so they weren't as crisp as when they came out of the fryer. But they're still really good. Nicely seasoned, not over-seasoned. Firm, yet still a little crunchy. Yes, that's an H800 Logitech headphone that's also on my desk. It's broken. Somebody brought it back to us in the box. Here, I'm returning this because my internship's over. And then I open it up and I try to run it, and the whole thing just broke. Damn those interns. They should have just told me this doesn't work anymore. No. Instead, I tried to give that to somebody else, and they're like, this doesn't work. Interns, man.
Our top story in news is, of course, AMD's announcement, not of the Ryzen 7000X3D series processors. We knew about them, but we didn't know when they were coming and how much they would cost. And now we know both. And there's 2 different release dates and 3 different prices. The 7800X3D, the spiritual successor to the 5800X3D, will be $449, and it launches on April 6th. Now, the two Ryzen 9 X3D parts, the 7900 and the 7950 X3D, are $599 and $699 respectively, and they both launch on the last day of this month, unless it's a leap year. I can't remember, but they launch February 28. Are you guys excited for X3D?
One, it's an odd year, so there's no leap year.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
You just do that right off the bat.
If I said the 29th, I'd be worried.
Yeah. No, this is welcome that we have this being announced. I think it's interesting that the 7800X3D is going to be a later product by about 2 months, 1.5 months, whatever. But the 7900X3D is probably kind of the sweet spot in that. I don't know if you're going to get a huge amount of performance from the 7950 for that $100, but I guess it depends on your application. But the nice thing about the 7900 is that they will boost up to that full, 5.7? Is that what the number was? Because they've got, obviously two CCDs. One that's X3D and the other that is not. And the one that is not can boost significantly higher. And so this is a positive thing. Yeah, 5.6 for the 7900 X3D. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You're going to get that X3D performance because it's got, a pretty good chunk of cache that's on the, on the one of the chips on the substrate. And so using Infinity Fabric, you're not going to see a huge difference in performance from one CCD and the other. You're going to make up for it in certain ways, but in games, you're going to have that big old extra chunk of L3 cache that's just sitting on there that is quickly accessible by both CCDs as compared to going out to main memory. So it's going to be a very interesting product, and I can't wait to see some of the numbers because we like extra performance, and they are not over the moon with the prices. $449 is about what they introduced the 5800X3D, which now retails for around $329 if you catch it on sale somewhere. So yeah, I don't think it's out of control in terms of pricing and what you get, and it should provide a nice boost across many applications as compared to the Intel product. And again, in gaming, it's going to be significant. Go ahead, Sebastian.
Just don't mention the price of the motherboards.
Right. My only thought is this going to push people into AM5 ownership? People who've been hesitant to move from AM4 or whatever they may be on.
I believe my point stands. Just don't look at the price of the motherboard.
There's going to be a certain sector of people who this will be a tipping point. But as we'll get into later with earnings, it's not going to be a massive tipping point as compared to previous generations products from AMD.
So, $449 for the 7800, the Ryzen 7, which will be the most attractive part for gaming, I assume, since that's the one that has just the single CCD with the 3D cache. Because the
you
other
don't get
ones,
the boost clocks, but at the same time,
you don't get the boost clocks on the other ones either. Because those boost clocks that are advertised are on the non-3D CCD.
Exactly. But you still are going to get those boost clocks on certain cores.
Yeah.
So in certain applications, you're going to be receiving the benefit of boost clocks as compared to the 7800, which you're not.
I think you're assuming that there's going to be some measure of core assignment or core management, and Windows just really doesn't have that yet for AMD.
Oh, but how dare you say such a thing?
Yeah.
Such a totally and completely accurate thing.
We're assuming a lot to think that the 12 and 16 core parts are going to be just as effective when Windows is going to have to try to manage two different clock speeds and two different cache layers. So
right, in theory, this sounds really excellent, but it matters a lot about the operating system that you layer on top of it and how aware of it is the underlying hardware.
Like
especially when it comes
YouTube
to
comment
processing.
from Al Bundy. Nice for game and streaming. You have 8 cores for the game and 8 cores for OBS. Right, but that is assuming again that you're basically able to partition out the CPU cores like that, and maybe you
process
can
assignment.
Yeah, maybe you'll have a virtual machine addressing
thing.
8 cores, and then the other 8 will be your game or something.
That's not bad.
The interesting thing is that we probably know people who will actually benchmark this and get these answers for themselves.
Yeah, our track
We
record
can't
of getting
wait to see
X3D
it.
parts in for review is not stellar. So I'll be reaching out to my contact and hopefully get a reply in the affirmative. But I don't know. I
Guess I'll just
think
watch Jay-Z 2 cents.
Why is it, do you think, that the single CCD part has been pushed out, and we'll get the Ryzen 9 parts early? Why are those launching first? Why not all 3 together? Why do you think that is?
I think they're
Profits?
hoping to maximize kind of profits.
Yes, because of the price tag and the fact that I think they know that X3D is going to sell a lot of AM5 platforms. That's just my thinking. Because when the dust settles, the 7800 X3D will probably end up being the best bang for the buck for gamers of the 3.
Oh yeah, and you save $150. And this is of course hopeful dreaming, but it's possible that a couple of system builders have said, "Hey, that 7800 X3D looks really good for some of our systems that we'd like to start selling," seeing as how most vendors are now selling at least 1 or 2 AMD based systems. So it'd be kind of nice to find out that, oh, no, they all went to OEMs, and this is just how long they took to get to consumer. But I think that's wishful thinking.
The thing I'm kind of most impressed by is that how quickly these have been released to the public versus, when AM5 was initially released. I mean, we look how the 5000 series was out, and it took a while for them to get their 3D stuff going, but they've been pretty aggressive in getting these parts out and moving. So good for AMD. It's nice for consumers. And with the recent price drops that we've seen on the 7000 non-3D parts, they're making room. They've got a full stack. So whatever you want.
I saw what you did there with the stack.
Yeah,
Stack.
that was
funny.
clever.
Yeah,
It wasn't clever. It wasn't me being clever. Believe you me.
They did pre-flight all this with the 100X3D as well, and that got them down with the technology, so they understood how to do it. So you can sort of understand that their time frame to releasing this got to be a little bit quicker. Anyway, it wasn't a big leap anymore.
Is this the end of the line for Intel this generation? When the X3D parts hit, or all of the Intel parts up to and including the 13900 KS just irrelevant for gaming now?
Good question.
No, you don't think so?
I don't think it is. No. I mean, you can still purchase pretty high-end Intel motherboards for still less than AM5 stuff. They are not as locked in on DDR5 speeds as AMD, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
You kind of need 6000, so you can still run stuff pretty quick at 4800 and 5600, and those are still, just a little bit cheaper in the 6K stuff. So
it is time for mandatory Intel Arc coverage. And we're not even talking about rumors or speculation or making fun of driver revision numbers that make it sound like
We're talking about a smoothless uplift in DirectX 9 games.
What I would like to know with this new Arc Graphics Q1 23 update is, are they still using Vulkan Proton wrapper, or are they actually on native DX9 now?
DXVK, Vale. Thank you.
DXVK, that's right. So we're talking about yet another huge gain. It seems to be pretty much across the board. The biggest gain, of course, is Skyrim and CSGO. And what else do you need? I mean, 77%
Because you know what? Running Skyrim at 110 frames per second doesn't do any bad things to your physics. Do you remember that? if you get over a certain frame rate, because the physics engine is tied to the frame rate, that like you kick a cup and suddenly everything goes careening around the room uncontrollably. Yeah.
Yeah, the Batman games were famous for that, and was it the one where you're the courier running across all the tops of the buildings? That would freak out with that too. Can't remember what that was called.
Not Dying Light, was it?
No, it was
everything important was red. What was that parkour?
It was
game?
like a flagship game for a couple of new features like PhysX.
Mirror's Edge.
Yes,
Yep.
thank you, Sebastian.
Oh, another important part of this announcement: the price, the 750,
Oh my gosh, yes,
dropped
the price.
to $249.
Yeah.
Get excited. To restore
So that
balance.
is 6600 range, and it performs as good, if not better. And also, ray tracing performance is significantly better than a 6600. So if you take best case scenario, where the most, tweaked, massaged driver and application, it would be like Time Spy, right?
Yeah.
That is in between a 3060 Ti and a 3070 in performance. So that is the absolute ceiling of this architecture. And so in the next 6 months, you're still going to see a lot more massaging of the drivers and the software, and it will eventually get closer and closer. I don't know if it'll ever get past the 3060 Ti and everything. Maybe not. I doubt it. But it is going to be faster and faster. And for $349 for an A770 to perform at the same around speed as a card, $150 more than that, that's pretty impressive. And it's even more when you look at the A750 for $249. That's, I'm not trying to be a brown noser because Ryan Shrout wrote this entire thing.
Look at the author of this article. Look at this.
Oh, he looks
who's
kind of
that?
familiar. He looks,
What a trustworthy
he looks
face.
so happy that he's no longer with PC Perspective.
Yeah.
Such jealousy. But anyway, I think that the Alchemist is the architecture. I think it's still got room to grow
Archmage.
and to get faster.
According to Josh Walrath on Twitter, it's called Archmage.
So that's
boy.
kind of a Battle Mage is the second, Alchemist is the first, and I screwed up. But anyway,
I like it. I think they should have used it.
Yeah, they should have, but they didn't. It was a brain fart. But still,
Yours is better. Yours is better, though.
Hey, thank you. It's still great to have a third major competitive graphics producer with a product that is reasonably priced. Because right now we've got a lot of unreasonably priced things.
This is the only new thing with anywhere near the kind of, upside, it seems. There's great AMD stuff, but it's previous gen. This is latest gen stuff, very much in active development. There are more Arc driver updates than there are AMD driver updates for the 6000 series and below.
Oh, we should talk about that. That's scary.
I don't know what's going on there, but it seems like they're absolutely serious about this. And so far, we haven't heard anything about the GPU discrete division going away or anything being scaled back. So,
other than wages are getting
everybody was working hard.
scaled back.
And speaking of wages,
yeah.
But you know what? Would you rather have your wages scaled back for a little while, or be
not
laid
have a
off?
job?
Yeah.
hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll be.
But yeah, I'm still excited about Arc. I would like to see them development more. I can't wait to see what Battle Mage will bring to the table. They're being aggressive. It's not a clunky architecture. You'd think it would be, just because of based on previous generations of Intel graphics integrated in their chipsets and on their CPUs.
Yes.
This is very throughput oriented, it seems like, and it's pretty flexible, but it does some really interesting things. They've got enough fixed function in there to do some nice stuff, and they're improving their software, and they're really trying to get this into the data center as well. So they're working hard on the software on that side too. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, it's not a slam dunk. It's not knocking your socks off, but it is at least competitive and reasonably priced for a 16 gig card at $350.
Yeah.
Did Raja get there soon enough to influence that architecture, do you think?
Yes, he's been there for quite a while. He probably was there when they started speccing out the entire thing.
I'll just mention here, since we kind of brought it up already, that it has now been almost 2 full months since the last release of a Radeon driver that is not 7000 specific.
Mm-hmm.
So your 6000 series GPUs, their last driver update was the beginning of December. So,
No, it was November 30th.
Oh, Lord. Okay. So it has been 2 full months. This article's a few days old. I don't know what's going on. I mean, we've had some new games launch and new driver updates, but they were 7000 only. I guess that's... if you ever needed proof that RDNA 3 was a brand new architecture that was quite different from the previous, I guess that's it.
And plus, it kind of seems all hands on deck to get RDNA 3 running as best as it can. So, yeah, 6000 series got kind of deep sixed a little bit.
Before we move on, let's take a quick look at an insane power supply that offers not one, but 2 12-volt high power connectors on the back. We've seen quite a few of these ATX3 power supplies that have one of these 12-volt high power connectors on the back, but this Thermaltake Tough Power GF3 1650 watt power supply, which is absolutely pushing the limits of what a single 15 or 20 amp circuit in the United States can even produce.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I was wondering about that too. And I love Thermaltake because I think they consistently go too far, which I enjoy. I really do.
Oh, they did.
Okay, so it's not terribly expensive either. It's 80 plus gold, which is, it's good, but not like crazy. It's not titanium or anything like that. But $330 with a 10-year warranty for a 1650 watt.
Well,
Power
they did test it, and it seemed to be stable out to almost 2,000 watts in certain testing.
What are they
Yes,
testing
I know.
this with?
Well, just think about how much faster your games would be with not one, but 2 4090s.
Right? That's what this thing does.
Am
Let's
I
see.
right?
But yeah.
If you had 2 4090s, you could use one 4090 for gaming and another 4090 to idle in the background. Or run
Physics.
OBS. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it could be your
OBS.
So,
But they did go a little crazy, so voltage regulation isn't wonderful. It's
It's
not horrific. It's not worrying.
not going
but
to
it's
destroy
not
your components,
wonderful.
is what you're saying.
Well, what do you got running on the 5 volt right now?
Check the input in this testing. Read it out loud.
Oh, they're on a
230
230
volts on a 230 volt
Yeah.
line. So really, if you want to get this crazy at home, people,
Yeah.
just run a dryer circuit to your PC room. I mean, you should probably get ahead of the curve and start on that now. Really, I mean, what generation of CPU GPU combination are we going to get to in the not too near distant future that's going to absolutely require the efficiency of a 230 volt line?
40 amp.
Face it.
Somebody said this is a minor PSU.
Not with those two 12V high voltage.
No, but I
adapters.
wonder if maybe the core, like the nucleus of this, is being repurposed from, everybody was coming out with those ultra high power supplies that were pushing the absolute limit.
Interesting
For miners.
line of thinking.
Yeah. That's a very...
Yeah, Tech Power Up did have a couple of questions about it, which actually would sort of make sense if that's what it was.
Yeah.
Like, really no
Anyway.
overheating protection.
Start pulling the
Oh.
230 volt line to your gaming room. Start it today.
Yeah.
Okay, well, no, I say they did complain that the overheat protection was at a ridiculously high temperature, but it was handling 2,000 watt loads at 43 Celsius.
So, in other words, This was absolutely originally meant for mining rigs.
But it was also doing it above 50 decibels. So
okay, so yeah, it's noisy. There's no practical over temp protection.
hey, maybe you want some 12 plus 4 pins that you can trust, though.
Maybe.
Nice.
Let's pause for a word from this week's podcast sponsor.
Welcome to your new year of potential. Let Factor help you achieve them with the gift of time. Factor can get you fueled up fast with ready-to-eat, nutritious meals delivered straight to your door, leaving you with more time and energy to tackle that ambitious to-do list. Whatever your lifestyle might be, Factor has your meals. Whether it's keto, calorie smart, vegan veggie, or a protein plus option, your menu is prepared by chefs and approved by dietitians. Each meal has all the ingredients you need to feel satisfied all day long. With 34 chef-prepared, dietitian-approved weekly options, there's going to be something new for you to try. Get Factor and enjoy clean eating without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals fast. Ready in as quickly as 2 minutes with no prep and no mess. We have some of these on the way right now to try out. So head to factormeals.com/PCPer50 and use code PCPer50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code PCPer50 at factormeals.com/PCPer50 and get 50% off your first box.
Yes, we're back.
We're back, and we're going to hand it to Josh because it's time to talk about financial results. Who's first?
Earnings. Nothing more than
Earnings.
earnings.
Okay, so Intel officially announced their earnings first. They always do. They announced it on January 26th, and it was not pretty. So in Q4 2021, they had one of their highest record revenue of all time, $20.5 billion in a quarter. And then it's only gone downhill from there. I think Q1 was still pretty good. Q2 showing some weakness. Q3, lots of weakness, lots of trepidation. Q4 was not good. They made $14 billion in revenue. And that, when you drop from 20 billion the year before to 14, that means a lot of bad things happened. And the PC market just imploded. You've got the data center market moving towards AMD and eating up a tremendous amount of high margin market share from Intel. They have invested in some other things, like Mobileye is actually doing well. Some of the networking stuff is doing okay. But, the drop in PC and data center just kind of hurt it. And plus, they've got overhead on trying to launch graphics. They're not making money out of that yet. They're doing better, but it's still a losing proposition for them at this point. So they still made what? No, they actually had a loss of what is it? I can't remember. Oh, $70 million, which no, or was it 700 million? No, it was $700 million. That's a loss that Intel has not seen in a long, long time. We're talking like 2004, 2005, when NetBurst was not doing great, and AMD was again eating their lunch. Gross margin, where they had typically been 60 to 65%, it's now under 40%. So there's a lot of issues, and it's not all just the market. Another issue that they have is really their process technology is more expensive for what they get as compared to what their competition is from TSMC. And they can rename them all they want, and they perform well, but they're just not as cost effective as what Intel has had in previous generations throughout pretty much all of its years of operation. They've been able to, shrink transistors down, make relatively small die sizes, where AMD has had to have bigger die sizes with either their own stuff in the foundry back before, 2006 and before, or afterwards where they use Global Foundries and now TSMC. And that's just not the case anymore. And AMD, because of their chiplet technology, they've got two very, very small CPU die attached to, a larger, older process I/O, which handles all the infinity cache, all the memory controllers, all the other I/O type stuff that they need. And overall, it's just more cost effective scaling out as compared to Intel has stayed with, at least in the desktops and in the servers with these large monolithic CPU dies. And eventually they are going away from that. I mean, Sapphire River and all these other things are going to be a multi-chip type implementation, but it's going to take them a while still to get there. And it's just, they got hit hard, and Q4 was not great, and Q1 is going to be essentially a bloodbath. They're expecting around 10.5 billion in revenue. AMD said that they're going to be about 10% less, so we'll get to theirs, but AMD made 5.6 billion. They're going to go down to 5 billion. Now compare 14 billion to 10 billion. That's a pretty significant drop. And they just announced that across the board, people are getting their wages cut. Pat's going to take a 25% cut. Other people in the higher end is going to get, like 10% to 15% of their wages cut. And from like G7 to G12, I think 5%. Anybody under the G7, their wages are not going to get cut. And it's just going to be, rough for a while for Intel. They really need to fix their foundry. It's been underperforming. It has not been competitive with third market guys, where in previous years, Intel was the gold standard with process technology, and that hasn't been the case since kind of their first generation of 14 nanometer stuff. It has been a slog from 14 nanometer to 10 to what I don't even know what the names are anymore. I mean, they're just, it's Intel 7, which was actually an enhanced 10 nanometer process. It's not going swimmingly for them, and we haven't seen this kind of weakness in a while. Pat seems like he's wanted to keep the gang together, and they see better days on the horizon. And this is true, that upgrade cycles will continue, and the market may be weak now, but eventually it is going to get stronger again. And you've got to have products ready to take advantage of that. And if they're, cutting salaries to keep people on, to be able to deliver products, that I think is a positive thing. Now, we are not getting into them, giving, what is that called? Not derivatives.
Dividends.
Mm-hmm.
They continue to offer dividends to shareholders, and I think that is a huge, huge mistake. If they pause,
they were smaller, but still they were paying them.
Well, they're trying to keep them, keep them in the pen so that they don't sell off.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
That's
a lot
of it's scared.
The share price would drop to the floor if they stopped offering dividends, and that's. It's
shareholders are more important than workers. Somehow.
Sadly. Yeah, they kind of are. So, their data center took a hit. I mean, kind of big. They don't have as competitive of parts. They're expecting better things down the line. They are really, really pushing the foundry technology, that they're expecting multiple nodes in the next couple of years that they're hoping will be class leading. We don't know if that will or not. I mean, they've promised that before, but they are spending the money. They're very focused. They're hoping to get back there. And, we kind of hope that they do too, because we like good technology and we like strong companies and we like people who are our friends to not be laid off. So that's, it's the long and short of it. So it's the next. I mean, they have not even given any kind of predictions beyond Q1. They have no idea what the next year is going to bring. I mean, even AMD said, we're expecting, a 10% decrease overall and a certain amount of points over the entire year. But, we still see strong demand for EPYC. We still seeing strong demand for gaming stuff. They've just released new GPUs that they're still selling okay, especially at the high end. The XDX is still unavailable. You can still get an XT for anywhere from multiple vendors, but they're not selling nearly as many as NVIDIA does. I mean, NVIDIA still has the vast majority, and in fact, Intel has eaten some of AMD's market share in the GPU place too. So it's kind of an interesting balance in between all of that. So yeah, not a great quarter for Intel, and the next quarter is going to be even worse. So we're going to see a lot of interesting things and news coming out of Intel, what they're going to do to try to keep their share price up there. But they still have a war chest of money that they can dip into. But of course, nobody.
And they still made $14 billion more than we did this year.
They sure did.
Josh, do you think this impacts?
Go ahead, Brett.
I was going to ask if you think this impacts any of their production capacity build out in the U.S. I know they've got 2 or 3 different plants. Okay.
I think already they've kind of slowed down the Ohio deal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That was kind of slowed down and the brakes put on. I think Arizona is still full speed ahead.
That one's further ahead.
Which is weird.
That one's further. Okay.
Yeah. It's further ahead, but also, why would you build in Arizona? We're in the middle of a historic drought, and Arizona
where's the water?
Yeah. And foundries require a tremendous amount of water to produce those chips, and so it's. I don't quite understand. I mean, money talks, suckers walk, but they can't touch my 3-lock box.
Yeah, and the tax breaks must be immense for the Arizona build.
They've got to be, but it's just dumb.
I think that's why you didn't see that as a cost for Intel.
Fair.
Like a good chunk of their income went towards the building of these new fabs. You didn't actually see that reported. It's not to say they didn't spend any money on it. It just wasn't large enough as some of the other investments. Because there are 2 pieces of Intel that got led behind the barn because of this, which is probably worth mentioning. Remember when they bought Barefoot Networks?
Yeah.
They were going to get into the sort of edge device and switch business. Well, that's done. That is ended as of this quarter. After this came out and the horrific revenue that they saw coming out of there, they've pretty much said the edge group is gone. We'll exist to support any customers that we still have, but you ain't going to be buying new kit off of us. It's not something we're going to do anymore. And the one that probably hurt some developers is Pathfinder. Remember the RISC-V design chips that they were doing? And so you go and prototype your own stuff and do your own sort of fun things. They're pretty much at this point saying you should find your own third-party vendor that supports RISC-V because we're shutting out the lights. It's gone. So they're gone. Mobileye, on the other hand, worked pretty well, but
they're making money.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know what is going to happen, how the company is going to change, but when AMD was making 1.5 billion to 2 billion a quarter, and Intel was 16 to 18 billion, that was a huge gap. Now we're looking at 5 billion a quarter for AMD and 10 billion from Intel. That is a massive amount of shrinkage in between the 2 companies. And Intel has a far larger workforce than AMD does. So, Lisa Su.
Well, they have half AMD's workforce now.
Good job. Yeah. Sorry.
One at a time.
Just in case you were worried that earnings were over.
Speaking of AMD.
So anyway, AMD announced yesterday their Q4 quarter, and it was not a bloodbath. So we take a look back at Q4 2021, and it was a record for them at $4.8 billion. Q4 2022 this year was 5.6 billion. So they still had a solid year of growth. Now, I think that their max was what, Q2 was, or was it Q3 that was 6.2? No, it was Q2. I think was $6.2 billion. Q3, they had to warn because they were, making less, and now we are at Q4 with 5.6 billion. But that's still not bad. They still pulled out a $21 million profit off of this quarter. And the biggest reason why they showed a loss was markdowns from, buying Xilinx, whatever you want to call it. Which, if you remember in the past, AMD did the same thing for ATI. Every quarter there was like, we took another $1 billion off of that, acquisition of ATI due to, restructuring and fees and unexpected things. And so they're doing
it's
that.
It's like the salary cap in the NFL. You're still paying the old contract off a bit.
Yeah, sort of. But this stuff's actually not nearly as confusing as salary cap
fair.
And how people get around stuff in the NFL.
That's fair.
That's a lot of magic involved. When you're talking non-GAAP, they still had almost a $1.1 billion income or profit, but again that did not cover the write down from the Xilinx acquisition. Xilinx itself adds about $1 billion plus a quarter in overall revenue with stuff that they've shipped. So it's still a solid acquisition for them.
Oh, Josh, just to interrupt. 1,868% growth in their embedded business after buying that company.
Boy,
they went
that's
from
a
about
shock, isn't it? Because they didn't really have
no doubt
an embedded business. Yeah, no, it's massaging numbers. It's fine, but no, I mean their full year revenue was $23.6 billion, which is an absolute record for the company. And again, when you take a look at the competition, Intel at one point was making 63 to 75 billion a year, and now they're looking at 40 to 50 billion for next year, even though they haven't quite announced it. So AMD has caught up big time. They are no longer 1/10 the size and revenue of Intel. They're approaching 50%, which that's massive for them. I mean, William J. Sanders III is probably ecstatic to see where this company has gone, and they've done it through execution. They've been very forward looking. Even though this Radeon 7000 series is not the bee's knees, them implementing chiplets in this way is a building block to having much, much faster stuff in the future and more flexibility. And they'll learn from this, and they'll figure out what they can add in there and what they can take out and what needs to be on the main die, and how data is transferred around the entire chip. And I mean, all of these things and simulations and real world applications that they're learning from this. They're 2 steps ahead of Intel and NVIDIA when it comes to multi-chip type modules for graphics, as they've done with their Ryzen series since the very beginning of the first Threadripper and the first Epics, which were just those crappy first gen Ryzen, Infinity Fabric, terrible latency between dies. But it was scalable, and they fixed that. And yeah, they're doing the same thing in graphics. They're very aggressive, and so far they've kind of hit everyone out of the park, and they haven't had really a failure as of late. It'll eventually come, but for now, they're building a really good foundation of being able to have sustainable performance through chiplets and interconnects. And sustainable performance increases, rather, by using this chiplet philosophy across their entire portfolio. And they're integrated Z-Links into as accelerators into future things. So future's bright at AMD. They've had a good year. They had a reasonably good quarter in very challenging times. They're going to take a quarterly hit next quarter, around 10%, but they say that they're being buoyed, and especially in Epic and gaming. So semi-custom and enterprise is really helping them out, even though their PC did drop down to, about half of what it was at its peak. So the 7000 series have not done as well. The 5000 are still selling, but again, not as well. And so, yeah, they're looking at 900 million in kind of just PC CPUs that were shipped in the quarter, which if, you have a brand new architecture, it should be higher. So that is definitely a weakness. But again, they're being buoyed up by gaming and enterprise, especially those fat margin epics.
When you look at client here, isn't this just a perfect illustration of how enthusiasts are just being priced out of their own hobby with this latest generation of stuff? I mean, it's as amazing as AMD has been for 5 years in a row in price performance for client, the desktop side of things, and then AM5 comes out, and this is like a high-end enthusiast platform. It's like the AMD equivalent of what Intel X99 or X299 would have been a few years ago, where the boards are expensive, you have to buy more expensive memory, and the processors aren't especially cheap either. And all we've seen since the launch is complaining about motherboard prices, and then AMD responding by working with Micro Center to give away free memory, and then eventually just seemingly permanently lowering the prices on the CPUs across the board, which has got to stick because these X3D parts, $699 for the 7950 X3D, that's right where the X part launched. And I doubt those would be selling for the same price.
They're working at the edges because they can't really chew at the margins of their board partners because they really want them on board with these high-end pieces because they're Halo products, right? And there was a few years ago that you could look at a lot of AMD boards and they were clearly not the equal of even in Intel mid-tier boards. They finally have the board partners in line so that they're building some of their very nicely featured, well done, well apportioned, good-looking boards that people want, and that costs them a lot of money, unfortunately. I'm not sure that's a reasonable explanation, but this isn't really where they're making their money anyway, as Josh was implying. It's all in enterprise, and that Xilinx stuff with the accelerators is really where their bread and butter big time is at.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you make a great point there. Motherboard prices do need to go down. And I think the PCIe 5.0 has been kind of a killer for attempting that because they're trying to get these out as Halo parts, and PCIe 5.0 is a selling point. It's a check mark. Yeah, and it's hard to implement on a board because electrically it just sucks. And you have only so many centimeters of traces, and then you've got to have retimers in there. And all of this costs a lot of money in terms of how many layers a board has, how much power you can deliver to these controllers, extra chip costs with retimers, and also PCB costs and supporting that, and the surface mount technology for all these extra chips and all this stuff, extra complexity. And
beat that against the squishy Aegisa stuff that's coming from AMD all the time, and then you get all kinds of problems.
Yeah, it's just, consumers see all that, and it's just not worth it for them. I mean, there is a reason why when they dropped the 5800 X3D prices down to $329, that they instantly sold out everywhere because that was a viable upgrade for a lot of people, whether they had 3000 series or lower 5000 series, whether it was a 5600X or a regular 5800. It's like, you know what? I can get this much extra performance in the things that I actually do by doing this rather than go into the 7000 series.
I would say that a 550 board with a 5800X3D is a great gaming platform. No, hands down.
Good way out on a limb there, Brett.
What do you?
No, B550 plus the X3D. Yeah, that's pretty much the best gaming platform for the money.
But yes, compare that to what you're having to pay for. That was what I meant. Is that the pricing is just so out of whack?
$330.
But you know what is also a really wonderful thing that is also happening at the same time? You can get a $200 4 terabyte Crucial PCIe 3.0 NVMe SSD.
Are you blowing your pick early?
But yeah, if you have an OS drive that's using PCIe 4.0 on a B550, that's connected directly to the CPU at PCIe 4.0 speeds. And then you've got a Steam drive that's using a 4 terabyte, still pretty fast PCIe 3.0 off of the chipset. It's kind of a win-win.
Let's pause for our second podcast sponsor of the week.
Have you ever been lured in by the screaming headline of, hey, try this free for 30 days, which is usually enough time to try it and then completely forget about a subscription or service? Before you know it, you're paying for a subscription you don't use every single month. You might be like 80% of the other people around you and have a subscription to something you've forgotten about. With Rocket Money, you can change that up. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills, all in one place. Super nice of them. Rocket Money will quickly and easily identify your subscriptions for you, so you can stop paying for the ones you no longer want. Hey, over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, and on average, they're putting up to $720 a year right back in their pockets. So if you no longer want a subscription, press that cancel button on the app, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest, and that's easy money. Stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/PC Perspective. That's rocketmoney.com/PC Perspective. Check them out. rocketmoney.com/PC Perspective.
We're back, and Intel's not the only one who's fallen on hard times. Ars Technica is reporting that Q4 2022 was a disaster for smartphone sales and sees the largest ever drop. Phone sales plummeted 18% last quarter and 11% for the year. Look at this, and a picture of an empty Samsung store. Probably, before
but that's probably normal for the Samsung store.
Aw. Okay,
I didn't even know Samsung has stores for phones.
Just because
Pianos,
if you walk past an Apple store, there are more employees than customers. They always look full.
What?
On the latest version of the operating system, they keep on giving us these free over-the-air updates. Why would you go out and buy a new slab that's almost exactly the same looking and has the same screen resolution?
Because your friend's slab is better than your slab, and you need the latest slab. How can you even tell anymore?
When was the last time an iPhone looked different?
Count the number of lenses. That's all I'm saying, right?
Don't they get smaller, bigger, and smaller and bigger?
Speaking of all this, didn't Samsung have a release today?
Yeah, they had their Unpacked event.
Yes, apparently it's a very gorgeous phone.
Actually looks like it's a significant upgrade. I mean, it's like the jump from people are saying the Pixel 6 to the Pixel 7. I mean, it may not look much on the outside, but the Gen 2 of that Snapdragon, the software, the photos that it takes, the movies it can create, all of that stuff, Josh,
are you working on the speech to justify buying it? You are.
Well, my S9 is 4 years old.
Oh, well, 4 years old,
4 years old. My battery's dying. I mean, yes, you can replace it, but they're not doing security updates for it anymore.
Ooh,
and it's got one camera.
That's it. That's
I'll tell you what, those burger pictures will be so much better if I have...
My God, they will.
The better cameras.
Especially the magenta one.
Yeah. But, if you don't upgrade every 2 years, if you're like me and do it 4 every 5, then going to like an S23 is going to be a totally different experience, especially when it comes to
magic.
Yes, Josh is the perfect upgrade case. If you're on a 3 or 4 year old phone, battery life is down, you're going to be blown away by a new phone. If you're on an
Yes.
iPhone 11, like my wife is, and she went to an iPhone 14, she'd be blown away, maybe. I think all she really cares about is getting more storage capacity at this point. But
That was a problem.
I think one of the problems for phone sales last year is just that there's been no compelling new design. And these are fashion items as much as they are anything else. People are completely addicted to these things. They're just a part of them now. And if your phone works and it fits in your hand and it does the things you need it to do, why the hell would you change it unless it looks cool or it becomes obvious that the thing you have is not fashionable anymore? Why do automakers change the way that cars look? Why do styles change? To continue to sell things. It becomes unfashionable to have the old, out-of-date looking thing. Well, I have an iPhone 12 here that could pass for an iPhone 14 easily. So it's
close.
nobody
But
has any idea what anybody's
I can tell
using
you're
anymore.
dated. You're dated from here, so I can tell. I can just tell.
I don't think you can. I think I could tell you, oh yeah, I got an iPhone 14, and you'd be like, oh cool, yeah. So I can see that it has the triple camera array. That's how I know it's an iPhone 14,
No,
right? Because it's been the same freaking camera
different.
array for
It's-
generation after generation.
It's slightly different. This is
Is it?
actual
I can't tell a
14.
difference. It looks like you just have it.
You know,
on
in
like a
between
black
like
case.
the S20 and S22, I didn't see a whole lot of difference.
There was
at all.
nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
was
but
nothing.
it seems like this generation they've actually kind of taken it hard. It's like we need to do something a step above, and you know whether it's more memory, more storage, more cameras. We're going to find out more things about it. So I mean, that's definitely interesting to me. But maybe I'll just get some $199 Samsung to replace my S9 and be perfectly happy. I don't know.
But the true point
until
is,
it upgrades the
average
email
people,
app to politely tell my coworkers to piss off, but very politely, so that I don't have to go after hours and tell them to do it myself. Now that would be an upgrade.
basically the true point here is that average people, are coming to realize this as well. They don't need to upgrade their phones anymore. It's very expensive, and disposable income is a bit down right now. So I'm not the least bit surprised to see the latest fashion phone purchase go by the wayside.
Let's move on to depressing security corner here at PC Perspective, where we're going to start at bleeping computer as is tradition. And here's a story about QNAP.
QNAP being asleep at the switch.
Over
Thank you, Brett.
29,000 QNAP devices are vulnerable to code injection attacks.
But 30,520 hosts with some version equal to the 2248 or equal to 2234 could be affected by this
98% of the
vulnerability.
guys they scanned could probably get hit by this.
Yeah, this is a remote code execution or code injection. So it's not too difficult for them to do. This exploit has already been published. It's already weaponized. So it's already out there. Please
Sebastian,
update
if you
your NAS
Scroll down
device
just a little bit
immediately.
further there to where it says what you should do to solve it. Keep going. Just a little bit further. A
The
little bit.
SSH and Telnet connections.
Disable universal plug and play. How is universal plug and play still a thing at this point? It was a horrible idea in the beginning, and the fact that it's still going on over a decade later and is still a vast source of a giant section of vulnerabilities, it drives me nuts. And it honestly doesn't do anything over and above what the plug and play system in your average Windows or Linux system does anyways.
But it wasn't just UPnP. It was also generic port forwarding, which many people typically use if you're hosting a game server, a Minecraft server, game server, but Minecraft, typical type stuff, or CS:GO, something like this. If you're hosting something like that, you're doing port forwarding, or you're remote accessing your systems from offsite. This is going to be something
because
that
it's an ass, so
typically do.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But no, UPnP
you gotta turn
must
that off
go.
too.
If UPnP is enabled on your system, just shoot it.
Hey, Steve Gibson told me to turn it off like 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right,
this
next
is a
up.
horrible, horrible problem. Okay, moving on.
yes, hackers
Oh, this one's
use
funny.
new icebreaker malware to breach gaming companies. Like these little names for these, they're always so.
Yeah. And to be clear here, by gaming companies, we mean the online betting companies.
Oh, I see.
not
That kind
not
of gaming.
the gaming companies. So yeah, they're
You mean
scamming the
plague
scammers in a way.
on stinking professional sports that we see. And
Yes,
everybody. Yeah, it's the worst thing
So-
ever.
they're scamming the scammers. So I kind of don't feel too bad about this, but at the same time, it is kind of nasty. And it's the company that detected this is a brand new one on me, Security Joe's. So what they're doing is they're hitting up the help desk at these betting online sites and saying, "Hey, I can't sign up. I've got my username. You know what? I just show you a picture. It'll make things a lot better." And of course, the picture is zipped because that's totally not suspicious whatsoever. And the zip archive actually contains a malicious link file, which then essentially turns that shortcut into a very complex JavaScript. So if you scroll down a little bit, you can see this is the actual target for that screenshot. So it's actually running an executable to download something from either a suspicious site or occasionally from Dropbox. Boom. And all of a sudden, the support person for this online betting company is infected, and it will happily run through, grab processes, steal passwords and cookies. Actually does a SOX 5 reverse server, which apparently is open on some of these. Your usual Visual Basic scripts, and just about everything else. So it's Icebreaker is sort of brand new, but it's built on a lot of well-established programs that have been infecting people for a very long time. And the fun thing is, even Virus Total is hitting like 4 positives out of like 70 or 80 scans. So yeah, it's a pretty nasty one, but then again, I'm trying to feel bad for them, but it's...
I'm surprised that the gaming companies are being called out on this one simply because support people from a variety of industries could be susceptible to the, hey, here's my image, it's zipped, sorry, and having the support staff double click it and infect themselves and open up back doors for the hacker. I imagine this happens, unfortunately, a much more significant number of times.
If it's a PNG or a JPEG or a GIF, it's already compressed about as well as it can be, and perhaps more. You don't need to zip the damn thing.
But the support people don't necessarily understand that. They're not highly trained computer people. They're sort of trained in the system they're supposed to be supporting and don't understand that. Oh, download
Don't make
this,
me get my
double-click
clue
it.
back.
I'm just
will
feeling
teach
it.
you not to click on them.
I'm just feeling it for the support staff, actually. So many things that have a real, true altruistic use can be abused so nefariously, and that's IT for you. So
What do they call that? Social engineering?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
One
you know
aspect
what?
of it.
Let's move along from this, and let's get to something that we didn't actually put on our link, and something that we should actually talk about.
Uh-oh.
okay.
No, this is kind of important. How many people have bought a Samsung 980 Pro drive? Apparently, their 3 series of firmware is causing significant issues. So if you've got a 980 Pro, download the latest version of Samsung Magician and upgrade the firmware, because a lot of these drives are just getting bricked. Well, not so much bricked, but they enter a read-only state, and you can't do anything about it.
Is it too late for the 980s that have sort of said that there are a lot of, what do they have? A lot of capacity set aside so that they can be reused. I thought that was one of the issues where they were sort of dying and saying that their capacity was kind of falling.
Well,
further
it keeps
very
doing
quickly.
it keeps taking that extra capacity
the spare
and applying
blocks.
it. They're like saying that, okay, this is bad. It's not really bad, but it's bad, and so it keeps taking that extra capacity and applying it to what would be usable, and that's just eventually going down to nothing. And
but
then,
does the firmware fix give it back, or does it just stop the abuse of?
If you hit the read only, you need to talk to Samsung.
Yeah, you're done.
And
you
get a
can't fix it with the
replacement.
firmware update.
You're done. You can't do anything.
Right.
But if you're drive is not in read-only state, you can apply the firmware and it supposedly fixes it. So,
And it'll stop eating the over-provisioning.
over-provisioning, yes.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I applied that yesterday with mine as, mine was still in good condition and I didn't see a huge degradation in over-provisioning. Still healthy. But yeah, you go out there, get the latest magician, and apply the firmware, shut down your computer, power back up, and you'll be happy. Well, maybe not happy, but you at least won't have a read-only drive. And if it's a boot drive, you're screwed because you won't boot with read-only. It's just, you're done.
It's time for Gaming Quick Hits, and our top story in that category, EA is canceling their mobile Apex Legends and Battlefield games and shutters the Industrial Toys studio. Oh no.
Damn you,
Bye-bye.
cancel culture.
Bye-bye.
Mobile games being canceled. Who cares?
Well, it's mostly
Well-
Canadian, so
Oh,
I
okay.
kind of care in a little bit in that they're my fellow
Mobile?
Canucks.
Well, people
But
stop
on the
buying
other hand, I don't
phones.
really care.
What are you going to do?
It's true. It's true. Phones are dead.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, speaking of gaming, E3 basically doesn't exist anymore because the big three aren't going to be there at all. Sony,
Nope.
Nintendo, Microsoft, they're not going to be at E3. So why even hold it? I guess it's for the game developers.
Money, money, money.
Developers.
Oh, I don't have anything to throw at you, Josh.
Rock, Paper, Shotgun reports Ubisoft is working on Far Cry 7 and separate Far Cry multiplayer spin-off game. How much Far Cry is too much Far Cry?
Oh,
7
that was a
is
couple
not
back.
enough.
Oh, okay.
7 is not enough.
Are you saying 8's enough?
8, yes. 8 might be enough.
Oh, hey, the next single-player Far Cry will allegedly drop the long-running Dunia engine used since Far Cry
Ooh.
2.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about it. So they're going to do Snowdrop, which Settlers' New Allies just came out. I haven't even seen it. And The Division 2, which is out, but I haven't seen it. So it'll be interesting to see what the engine adds to it, because, I mean, we've been looking at Far Cry from when it was oh my god, it's killing my system, how the hell can I even pick up this turtle, to, yeah, I'm sick of crawling up radio towers, and it's interesting, but it's same.
Let's move to picks of the week. Josh, please get us started.
Okay. Intel Arc A750, $249. There you go. Just, if you're buying somebody a card, drivers have improved dramatically. It's competitive with everything. Stuff that's $100 and $150 more expensive than that. It's, why not? It's a solidly built card. I don't think next generation Intel will have a reference card like this. I just don't think that they've got the money that they want to spend to do that. So, this is kind of, like having a nice 740. Grab one and have it and enjoy it, because it may be the last.
It'll be a collector's item. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Jeremy?
Well, the thing about laptops is when people come to you, they never give you specifications. They just say how much they want to spend.
Oh,
and
man.
so this was sort of a last-ditch effort, but it's actually not a bad deal for Canada. It's a Pavilion X360. It's about 2 years old, but it still has a decent Intel i5 in it. It comes with 8 gigs of RAM as opposed to the crippled 4 that you often see. 512 gig SSD, touchscreen, and it's only $650. It's not amazing, but most of the people asking you for advice on buying a laptop don't care about anything about Wi-Fi 6 and the fact that it boots quickly. So hey, if someone's looking for a laptop and they're willing to spend about $700, that's actually not a bad deal.
Which is like the Canadian version of the I want a laptop and I'm not spending more than $500 US.
Exactly, yes.
Everyone, like, well, I don't want to spend more than 500. Okay.
But I don't want a refurb.
Okay. Then Laughs Gen is perfect for that. And there's... Do you think that anyone is going to notice the difference between the latest gen and one that's 1 or 2 old? When they're just online, on a web browser, and running Office applications.
Yeah.
All right, Brett, your pick this week.
If you're like me, and I know that I am, you probably need an ultra-wide monitor. This is a new entry in the ultra-wide monitor space. For a modest outlay of $369, I know that this initially says that it's 144
I like
hertz.
the name.
But the specs are actually 165 hertz, I do believe, based on the manufacturer's page. This is, of course, a 3440 by 1440 34-inch curved 1500R ultra-wide screen gaming display with plenty of features, not to mention the 165 hertz, the HDR. It is a VA panel, so you do have that sort of going for you and against you depending on your point of view.
But it's curved. You want VA for curved for those better black levels. You don't have to worry about the viewing angle as much as we
the viewing angle.
Well, 178 degree
is very respectable.
Well, 178 degree, you can view something.
True,
but it's probably not going to be the color you think it's supposed to be.
Okay. Fair enough. It's
VA is like a 20 degree viewing angle before it's
very easy
color shift
to level that you know.
But when it's curved, you don't have to worry
Complaint.
about color shift. Is what I'm trying to say. Like the panel, like
That's
this,
exactly it.
It's curved.
Exactly it.
So the color shift is less noticeable. Is what I'm trying to say.
And if you're sitting down to play some games, even if this is going to be great, it's really the immersive experience, quote unquote, without putting goggles on, that you always wanted out of your video games. It's an ultra wide. It's the 34s, the price performance ratio to beat there. 165 hertz. It's going to be great. One microsecond response time. Good gray to gray. This is
Millisecond,
like I said,
not micro.
Sorry, millisecond. Thank you.
It's
I
actually
wish it would be a
megaseconds.
microsecond.
It's a
response.
megasecond.
That would be awesome.
It's a megasecond. It takes a while.
Just forget the Miller or Mega. Just a second. It's got a 5-second
it's 1
response.
second. Anyway,
Yeah, it takes a while.
This is from a manufacturer that I'm not too familiar with, but they have a lot of other monitors, for instance, on Amazon that have very high 4.5 star reviews. Looks like they're going to be around a while. So,
As one of our YouTube commenters was pointing out, the 1440 tall, 3440 wide, ultra wides, that you can actually get work done on these too. I feel like we finally reached the point when you have that much vertical resolution that side-by-side applications, this takes the place of a dual monitor setup for a lot of people, I think.
yes, it does.
So
Yes.
It saved me desk space.
Literally 2 monitors.
Yeah, I went from 3 monitors to 1 ultra wide, and even though 3 monitors were nice for some things, I was able to adjust my work that I now only have to worry about 1 monitor, which is
Josh,
nice.
I didn't know you had an ultra wide. Actually, I did not know that.
Oh yeah,
I've had it for like 4 years. It's one
I
of
don't
the
remember you mentioning
Alienware I bought back in the day for like $800, which never told my wife about.
Ouch! You just did now.
Wait, did
though,
she listen
maybe.
to the podcast?
She does
No.
not.
Oh, okay.
She's not that interested in me, so don't worry
Okay.
about it.
She's just interested in
Unlike your
disappearing
wife.
for 2 hours a day.
My wife is very interested in you, Josh.
Maybe Jeremy should do an outro for a change.
Okay, yeah. Jeremy, whenever you're ready.
Take a big puff in and let it out.
Give us a good Gizmonics
Farewell.
Institute.
Wait, like Shatner-esque, like Shatner at the science fiction convention. Take a long draft.
Frank, go and change the baby. Doesn't the baby have to want to change?
Okay, that's it. It's our show. We'll see you next week.